Hey everyone, it's Lauren. Welcome or welcome back. Today I'm doing another best and worst video, and this one is about concealers. I did a best and worst concealer video a little while back, but I believe that was 2 if not 3 years ago, so I thought it's time to do an updated one on the channel. I've tried out far more and, have I feel like more opinions to share, so that is what we're doing today. I have a bunch of different types of products to talk about. I've got more full coverage concealers, medium coverage, light coverage. I've got a bunch of different price products, so ones that are going to be a little bit more affordable and then ones that are going to be a little bit on the steeper side when it comes to price. So a lot of different products to talk about. Kind of my goal is just to share the qualities in each one that I like and which ones I dislike, so that way based on your budget and your preferences and just your choices as a consumer, what you're looking for in a concealer, you will be able to find some that you may want to try out, maybe some you want to avoid, that kind of a thing. So I will have all these products that are available linked in the description below. As always, if there is a star beside of a link, that means that that link is an affiliate link, so if you decide to go through that link to purchase a product, I can make a commission off of your purchase. It won't be any extra cost to you, but I do like to just make that clear right at the start of all of my videos. But with all of that being said, let's get talking about these concealers. So this first one is the L'Oreal Infallible Full Wear More Than Concealer. Here's what it looks like. It's around $14, and the shade that I have is Eggshell 325. This concealer has, first off, a pretty large applicator, so if that's something that you like, then this may be something you may enjoy. It's pretty large. But as for the concealer itself, it is a very, in my opinion, full coverage concealer, especially from what I know from like drugstore type of products. I feel like you typically aren't able to get as much coverage as easily, and this one, you can get a lot of coverage. But I do want to note that it is definitely a heavier formula, so the coverage does kind of come with a little bit of a price. It's definitely not going to feel very lightweight on the skin. I find that it can feel slightly heavy on my skin, and on top of that, I feel like it is definitely for more people, like people who have more of, an oily skin type or even just normal. But for me personally, and I guess this is important to note for the entire video, but I do have drier skin. And so this for me can kind of emphasize some texture and things like that. And it just, can feel kind of heavy and uncomfortable and feel drying to my skin. So that's the reason I really didn't get too much into using this product. One thing I do want to note, even if you are, if you're interested in this product, great, I think you'll be able to get some full coverage at a decently affordable price tag, but do know that you do have to act very quickly when it comes to blending this product in. It does dry down very fast, which is one reason that I do like personally whenever I do use it, just to use it on my under eyes, because if you do want to use it on a blemish, I mean, you have to blend that thing so incredibly quickly, and it's just going to be harder in my opinion. So while I do like it, I think it's for a specific group of people, and it's not even my favorite for that group. So it's not one that I would really recommend. It's just kind of a meh product in my opinion. So the next one is the Maybelline Master Conceal Camouflaging Concealer. Here's what it looks like. This one is around $8. Kind of depends, and this goes for pretty much all of the drugstore products that I'm talking about. Like this one's $8 at Amazon, but then it's like $8.70 something cents at Walgreens. So it definitely does vary. Now for this one, I have the shade Light 20, and here's what the applicator on it looks like. You can see it's just kind of a squeezy tube applicator, and they say that you're just kind of supposed to use your fingers to kind of blend it in, and it's honestly, it seems like it's a under eye concealer the way that they've marketed it. However, for me personally, I've only ever really used it as a blemish concealer or spot concealer for different areas of my face, dark circles, or not dark circles, but dark spots or anything. If you wanted to use this as an under eye concealer, I think you could, but it does kind of not serve the purpose. The way that they describe it is like a full coverage under eye concealer. And for me, if you are going to do that, you're going to have to really build it up. And 9 times out of 10 when I've used this product, it does crease a little bit. So I find that it works best for me to use it just kind of as a spot concealer. I don't have to worry about creasing too much. But if I did use this underneath my eyes, maybe if I only used a sheer amount, then I wouldn't get that creasing. But to build it up to the full coverage that it claims to be, it kind of creases. So it's kind of an interesting product that way. I know we're starting this video off kind of negative, but I still have one more con to talk about with this product. It is that it does oxidize a pretty good bit, so it is going to get a little orangey, a little bit dark, so definitely note that if you are, thinking about picking up this product when it comes to picking out your personal shade. But honestly, Maybelline has a lot of good concealers, one that I'm going to talk about in today's video, and so personally, I don't think this is the one that I would go for or recommend that you do either. So the next product is one that gets pretty talked about in the beauty community even still, but it was very popular back in the day. I wanted to talk about this one next after that Maybelline one, simply because this is one that I feel like is a very good full coverage under eye concealer. So if that's what you were looking for in the Maybelline one, then maybe this is going to be one, while pricier, that is going to, you know, more fit that need that you may be looking for. So this is the Tarte Shape Tape Contour Concealer. Here's what it looks like, $29. This is in the shade Fair Neutral. This is one that I have repurchased quite a few times, but I find myself going through it every single time that I've repurchased it. I go through it slower and slower just because I am gradually finding other under eye concealers that I do like a little bit better, and then I'm able to kind of manipulate more depending on like how much coverage I'm wanting. This one, it kind of does one thing, and that's give full coverage. This, I don't necessarily love using it on blemishes and everything because I do have it in a little bit of a lighter shade. However, I think that if I did have it in a shade that matched my exact skin tone and wasn't, you know, meant to be kind of a little bit of a brightening under eye concealer, then maybe I would use it on, you know, those other areas. So for me personally, the only way that I use this is underneath my eyes, and I find that I can really, you know, use a decent amount, but not too much, just kind of right in this little area right there, and then I can blend it out really nicely with like a damp beauty blender. That's typically how I apply my under eye concealers, but this one, it just shears out very nicely. It can feel a little bit heavy, but personally, I don't find that to be, you know, irritating. And like I said, I do have a little bit of drier skin, and I don't typically, unless my skin's like abnormally dry that day, I don't have issues with it looking like cakey and creasy on my skin. Like, it can look very natural, especially if I set it with powder, which I pretty much always do. This is kind of the concealer that whenever I'm wanting my skin to look like very perfected, this is the one that I know I can count on, and I know that it's not going to budge either. I do have one that I think has, you know, taken this one's place when it comes to the #1 concealer that I can count on, but this is still a very good one, and it's relative in price to the other one I'm going to mention. So I do want to say real fast though, I was about to be like, okay, that's it for this one, but I do want to say that this one does have kind of a scent on it, so that makes me think there's some sort of fragrance in here. I'll put the ingredient list on the screen so you guys can know exactly what's in it, but if you do have sensitive skin, I have pretty sensitive skin, and I find that if I wear this like multiple days, you know, it can get a little irritated, but overall I don't have an issue with it. But if you do have sensitive skin, that is something to note, that this could be, you know, a potential irritant for your skin. So this is the one that I really do think has kind of dethroned the Shape Tape, in my opinion, as kind of my go-to #1 can count on concealer. There is one flaw with this one, and I'll get to that, but this is the Makeup Forever Ultra HD Self-Setting Concealer. Here's what it looks like. I have mine in the shade 20. I'm not sure if there's like a name for that. Normally there isn't for Makeup Forever, but I have mine in the shade 20. And here's what the applicator looks like. I don't know, I really like it. I think it's like the perfect size for an applicator, not too big, not too small. The formula on this one does differ from a lot of other concealers that you can build up to get full coverage, which you can with this one. I typically find myself building it up to get medium coverage, and I can shear it out if I want to get something a little bit lighter, but you can also build it up to get full coverage. And if I feel like a lot of concealers that can give you full coverage are going to be a little bit heavier, and the formula is going to be a little bit more thick in consistency, and this one's very fluid-like. It's not too liquidy, like it's going to get all over the place, but it's just a little bit more creamy and fluid-like than a lot of the other ones that I mentioned that are full coverage, and so that's something that I very much like about this. For that reason though, I think that in order to get like this is actually the concealer that I have underneath my eyes right now, but in order to get, you know, a good like clean, soft, smooth finish underneath the eyes, you do have to let this sit, not even for that long. I mean, maybe 15 seconds or so. You can let it sit a little bit longer prior to like blending it in, and I find that that is the way that this can work best for me. If I just give it a little bit of time to dry down just a little bit, then the consistency is really nice for blending on this one, and I find that it does stay very nicely throughout the day. I personally do set it with powder. I've tried not setting it with powder before. It did get a little creasy. It wasn't anything crazy, but I mean, it was definitely like I'd rather just set it with powder, even though it says it's self-setting. I'll still just go ahead and set it. This is one that I have repurchased before, and I really do think that when I use this one up, I'm going to repurchase it again. It's one that just has a decent amount of shades, and this one in particular really does work for my complexion when it comes to a brightening concealer. I've never really used it as a spot concealer to kind of like, you know, treat different dark spots, but it does help with dark circles. It does help with, you know, kind of improving the appearance of my under eyes and that kind of a thing. So this is one that I feel like I can always count on, and especially when it comes to when I want one that's going to be very universal and I can use it in so many different ways and know that it's going to work the way that I want it to, this is kind of my go-to. So I was kind of planning on mentioning this later on in the video, but this is probably my top tier at the moment. So this one looks a little dingy, but as I said earlier, there was another Maybelline one that I do really like and wanted to talk about. This is the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. I told you, it is dingy looking. This is another one that I've repurchased countless times. I have mine in the shade 10 Fair. This concealer is similar in, like, the applicator, the doe foot is similar in size to that Makeup Forever one that I just talked about. This concealer for me, I really, like, for a long time, it was the one that I relied on when I wanted something that would double as not only like a blemish concealer or like spot concealer, but also something to use underneath my eyes. I find that this shade in particular works really nicely for my complexion, where I can wear it as the under eye concealer and as my like spot concealer. So then sometimes I'll mix like a brightener or something in it, and then that way I can get a little bit of brightness underneath my eyes. But I find that the formula lends itself pretty well to both. It's not going to give the most full coverage on planet Earth or anything like that, but I think you can get a little bit more full coverage. It's not going to be the most. I would say typically it's light to medium. Like, if you really want to build it up, you can, and I don't think it's going to get too crazily cakey or anything like that, or creasy or whatever. I think you can build it up a little bit, but typically I'm wearing it as a light to medium everyday kind of concealer, mostly for underneath my eyes. So this is one I really like from Maybelline. If you are, you know, debating between the two of them, this is definitely the one I would choose over that other Master Conceal. So next item that I want to talk about is one that I did get sent for free, just as PR from Merit Beauty. I got sent a couple items from them, but I had no obligation to talk about them on my channel. They were like, if you do, great. If not, great. I'm not getting paid or anything like that, but I just wanted to make that clear because it is one that I do enjoy and wanted to talk about. But it also is a pretty penny and pricier, and I want you guys to know that I acknowledge that. So this is the Merit, the Minimalist Perfecting Complexion Stick. So here's what it looks like. I have mine in the shade Silk, and this is $38, which definitely is a steeper price tag. This is like I mentioned, a stick foundation and concealer product. So they say the idea is that you don't have to, when using this product, you don't have to use any foundation or concealer. Like, this can kind of be a catch-all. You can use it however you want to cover whatever you want. And for me personally, I think a lot of times with stick concealers, they don't do the best job when it comes to like concealing underneath the eyes. I find that they can be a little bit hard to blend in and everything, but this one is, like, I feel like it does a relatively good job. I feel like it blends very nicely, and I can kind of manipulate it in a way that I want to. I can't build it up too much, otherwise it does get a little bit creasy and seeps into my fine lines underneath my eyes. So the way that I typically am using this is as a spot concealer, and it is one that pretty much I've only used this once without using like a base type product, just because that's not really how I typically do my makeup. I like to always have some sort of just base product, kind of overall complexion, you know, kind of matching type product, like a foundation or a tinted moisturizer or something. But whenever I use this over top of my blemishes and with some sort of foundation or base product paired with it, I really do like the way that it looks. It conceals what I need it to conceal for as long as I need it to be concealed, and it just like looks very natural while still covering what I need to cover. And so I really enjoyed having this, but I do want to make sure that you guys know I'm not mystified as to the price on this one. It is more expensive, and there are stick concealers that I have that I feel like do just as well when it comes to the job. But if you're wanting to treat yourself, or if you're really interested in Merit Beauty, this is definitely one, you know, I think you could try out and I think you'd really enjoy, but you definitely don't have to. So this product is being discontinued, but it is still available in some shades at a couple of different places. So I did still want to mention it, and it is a stick concealer that I've really been enjoying as my spot concealer. When I talk about this product though, it is, you know, one that was originally a little bit pricier, and now it's like much more affordable in price. I'll get into all that, but the packaging, not it. Like, it just completely, there are so many different problems I have with this packaging, so I'm sorry if it looks stingy, but it is a good product, and especially at the price that you're able to get it at now, if you can find your shade, this is a good one. It's the Marc Jacobs Accomplice Concealer. Here's what it looks like. I believe it was originally $32, but now it's available for like $16 pretty much universally, because it is being discontinued. The shade that I have is Fair 16. Now, as for the problem with the packaging, maybe you're not willing to like deal with this, because I don't know if everyone else had this problem, but I am not like crazy with my makeup. I take care of it pretty well, so the fact that it has been damaged this much, I don't know if you can see, but the lid on it is pretty cracked. And not only that, the like under part, I've had this happen with just a few products, but the under part of it, of the lid, came unattached, and so I have to be really careful with that, and there's no way for it to stay in there unless I like glue it, and it's a lot of work for me, and I'm like, no thank you. But as for the actual product, here is what it looks like. The way that I use this is just like either applying it directly, because you can, because it is a little bit of a creamier stick concealer, which, as I mentioned kind of earlier, I do really like. A lot of times I'll just take like a damp beauty blender and go directly on it. I'm not sure if you're really supposed to, but that's the way that I found this worked really nice when it comes to using to like cover my blemishes on my skin. This melds so nicely, like it just meshes into the skin similarly to the Merit one, but it just covers what I need to cover. At the higher price tag, I don't think I was like absolutely swooning over it. I was like, it does what I need it to do, but you know, it is a little bit higher in price, so I'm not like, you know, gung-ho loving it. But since you can now get this at a more like almost drugstore type of price, if you can find your shade, I think this might be one that you want to try out. As for using it underneath the eyes, I haven't really had much success for that, but the way that I use it as a spot concealer, I really enjoy it. It gives me the coverage I want, stays the way I want. It's been a really good one. So as for an under eye concealer that I'm not a huge fan of, and this is from a brand that I do have a favorite from that I'll be talking about in a second, and I have so many favorites from Nars in general, I love it, but this is the Nars Radiant Creamy Concealer. Here's what it looks like. I have mine in the shade, what is it called? Light 25, or not 25, Light 2.5 Creme Brulee. So as for the applicator on this, I feel like I've been kind of talking about it. It's a very typical applicator size. It's one that I like. As for the formula on this, it's one that I don't love. It's, you know, supposed to be an under eye concealer pretty much. I know some people have used it as kind of a spot concealer, but for me and pretty much everyone I've seen use it, it's an under eye concealer. And when it comes to this one, I think it gives really nice coverage, but it does come at a cost. You know, it's easy to blend in. It's not, you know, you can really kind of build it up to your liking. But then it creases so incredibly fast. It gets creasy, and the main issue I have with it is it gets cakey. It's just one that just looks so unnatural, and especially if you have any fine lines or if you have any wrinkles underneath your eyes or anything, it is going to emphasize those like crazy because the formula just is a little bit drier. It's a little bit just more unnatural looking. I think the reason that this is kind of a cult favorite for a lot of people is because it is a little bit drier, so then I feel like it lends itself really nicely to people who do have more oily type of skin types or even normal skin. But for people who have even slightly drier skin, I feel like a lot of times it just doesn't look the best, and there are going to be ones that are going to suit other people and all of that. So I know that this could be absolutely your favorite, and if it is, keep on using it, keep on loving it. If somebody else has recommended it to you and you really do think it's going to be one you like, you probably will. As for me and my drier skin, it's not one that I enjoy. It's not one that I think is worth the price. There are ones at the drugstore that have worked so much better for me. So this is one that I personally wouldn't recommend from my experience, but I know that, you know, people can enjoy it. As for a Nars concealer that I really do enjoy, this is actually one that I really didn't think was going to be like my concealer. Like I kind of purchased it because I had heard good things about it and I wanted to use it as a spot concealer and I thought it would do a good job. Little did I know it would become one of my favorite under eye concealers and spot concealers. So this is the let me make sure I'm getting the name right. Okay, the Nars Soft Matte Complete Concealer. Here's what it looks like. The shade that I have in this one, and I would say this one matches my complexion a little bit better when it comes to like overall complexion and under eye. It is the light 1.25 Affogato. And as for this one, it's just one that's in a pot, and you know, mine's a little dingy looking on the inside, but the way that I use this is whenever I'm doing like, I want to say whenever I'm doing lighter makeup, but a lot of times like this is just one of my go-to concealers because I feel like it looks very natural underneath the under eyes but still gives a decent amount of coverage, and you can build it up to your liking. I feel like you really can get anywhere among the spectrum of like light to even medium full coverage. Like you really can get up there in coverage with this one. And the way that I typically use it is I'll apply it with my fingers and kind of get that warmth going because I feel like that is the best way to kind of activate the product and it allows it to just blend better into the skin. So then I'll blend it in with my fingers underneath my eyes, and then I'll take my damp beauty blender and kind of like pat it out a little bit just to make sure everything's nice and seamless because your fingers typically can only do so much. But as for a spot concealer, I do the exact same thing. I'll use my finger, get the product kind of activated, the warmth from like, you know, your hands, put it on wherever, you know, whatever blemish I'm trying to cover or anything, and then I'll kind of tap on top of it with a damp beauty blender, and that's how I get it to work. And this meshes so well with the skin. Typically I am using it over a base type product, but I mean, on days where I'm wanting a no makeup look, this provides all the coverage that I could need. And really, like I said, when I was purchasing it, I really was just expecting it to be kind of a spot concealer. I liked the idea that, you know, I could just place it exactly where I wanted and everything. And then one day I was like, you know what, like I'm kind of in a rush. Why not just try throwing it underneath the eyes? And when I set this, it stays. If I don't set it, it does not stay. It gets so creasy. But like I said, I'm pretty much always setting my concealers with some sort of powder, and so then I really don't have an issue. It wears so nicely throughout the day. Even if I'm wanting my makeup to last, I know I can still use this. So this is definitely one of my top concealers, up there with the Makeup Forever one, especially when it comes to just an all-around universal product I can use in a bunch of different ways. So now for a concealer from, you know, that's a little bit more affordably priced, kind of has that drugstore price. This is the ColourPop No Filter Matte Concealer. Here's what it looks like. This one is $7, and I have mine in the shade Light 12. So this is another one with kind of that same typical wand. The formula on this one really is up my alley. It's a little bit more fluid-like in consistency, and it seems like typically more liquid-based concealers, I find them to be a little bit easier to blend in, and I find them to, you know, just be a little bit, I don't know, a less kind of creasy and cakey, but this one I really did not have that kind of luck with. I don't know if it's because it is a mattifying concealer that it just didn't work, whether I used it as, which 9 times out of 10 I ended up, you know, using it as a spot concealer to cover blemishes or anything like that, but even then it still just looked a little off. It oxidized quite a lot, which I think would be an issue that anyone would have. But then as for like kind of a more my skin type of problem, when it comes to having drier skin and using a mattifying concealer, sometimes like with the one from Nars, it can work great, and you know, you're able to still get a finish that looks natural or even just looks good. And with this one, I couldn't get one that even looked good. It just looked cakey and didn't look very pretty underneath my eyes. Like it just looked kind of, yeah, cakey, creasy, basically anything you could say. It looked underneath my eyes, but I've seen so many people use this who have more oily skin or more normal skin, and it does look really nicely on their skin. So I know for me personally it didn't work, but I know a lot of people have tried this and enjoyed it, and it is, you know, a more affordably priced option that, you know, can give you good coverage and give you a pretty matte finish, and cancel out those oils in like a very pretty way. But for me, it did not work. So if you have dry skin, this is probably one you just want to avoid. I really want to try the other one from ColourPop. That's the Pretty Fresh, like hydrating concealer. I think that one would be a lot more up my alley, and maybe yours too if you do have drier skin, but I haven't tried that one, so I can't really speak on it. So here's another one from the drugstore that I love as kind of a more full coverage under eye concealer. It is the Milani Conceal and Perfect Longwear Concealer. Here's what it looks like. This is in the shade 115, and that is their light nude shade. I think with this one, I have a little bit of like qualms with it, only because I do feel like it is, and the couple of different shades that I've tried out from the brand, it just seems a little bit yellowy. So I do have to be careful. Like I don't like using it on camera or anything because it just makes my under eyes look yellowy and just kind of not great. So like for special events and stuff, when I'm wanting a full coverage concealer, although this can give me the coverage that I want and the finish that I want, it looks yellow and it just can look odd. But on the day-to-day, when I'm wanting a little bit more coverage, I feel like my under eyes are just a little too dark, or, you know, just a little too baggy, or whatever it may be, this can be something great for that, especially because it does have that yellowy undertone that can cancel out that kind of blueness and discoloration. As for the actual formula on this one, it's a little bit thicker in consistency, but I find that it's still pretty creamy and easy to blend out with like a damp beauty blender, or even my fingers. I can get a nice kind of look, but you do have to act a little bit quickly, because I feel like if you let this sit underneath your under eyes and set for a while without blending it, you're gonna run into trouble, and it's going to be very difficult and just hard to blend out. But as for this concealer, it is one that I've repurchased multiple times. I think it is, when it comes to the coverage, it stands with a lot of my more higher end expensive type products. If I could do something about like the kind of yellowy consistency or like look to it, then this would probably be my go-to. It's been a favorite for a while, and it still is, but it just, there's a time and a place for it. And because I can't use it all of the time, and I am filming quite a bit, or, you know, when I'm wanting full coverage, a lot of the times it is where I'm out and about and I really want my makeup to, you know, photograph well. And with this one, it's just a little bit harder to do that with, but on the day-to-day, it looks really nice. And the only thing I would say is if, you know, you are sensitive to kind of those paint thinner type of smell, you may not love this one, because it is a little bit strong. It's not too crazy, but it definitely is there. And then also it is slightly heavy because the formula is a little bit thicker in consistency, but those are really the only two negatives that I can think about with this one. And if you're looking for full coverage at a more affordable price, you'll probably really enjoy this. Alright, so that about wraps it up for today's best and worst concealer video. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you found it helpful. If you did and want to see more of the style of video in the future, definitely be sure and give it a thumbs up so I can kind of gauge the interest on it and know what you guys are liking and post that and get that content out there for you. But if you have any comments about like the concealers that I talked about, any questions, or if you want to share, you know, your thoughts on your favorite concealers or, you know, ones that you've tried out that you didn't really like, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. And I'm sure that other people, when they're looking for their concealers, they'd love to hear some feedback from you guys as well. So, you know, leave it all in the comments. I'll be sure to check them out, and I just love talking with you, so that's another reason I'd love for you to do it. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're new here and you haven't already subscribed, I'd love if you would do that as well before you head on out. But thank you so much for being here, whether it's your first time or you've been here for a while. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you guys know how much all the support means to me, because it really does. I hope that you all are having a great day today. I hope you have a great couple of days until my next video goes live, and I will see you when it is. Bye, guys.